pointed to, a general question. If you have individual or apartment questions, keep them until the end, and then you can meet with Roger or Michelle or email them to them at the end. So without further ado, Roger and Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? No, I have no's. Can you guys hear me in the back? No? There we go. How about now? Perfect. All right, so we're going to go through this emergency preparedness. Slides were actually put together very well. Thank you, Christina. She did an awesome job with it. So there is 61 slides involved. We're going to try to fit this in 1 hour. We're going to take questions after each portion. We'll be brief with the question and answers, but if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out, send an email, or catch me in the hallway. So without anything else, we're going to start. Okay. Emergency response. Senior life. I'm not going to do verbatim for most of it, but just the key points I will. Senior lifestyle policy. The community will respond to all community issues, emergency responses, pendant pull cords, or telephone calls. First responders to the call will be designated to communicate information directly to the emergency responders. So that's fire, EMS. It could be security. When a call is received via telephone or pull cord, immediate response is required. So that's going to be someone within staff or EMS fire. The breaker security will respond to the pull cord pendant. If the cord is alarmed, they will enter the apartment. Upon arrival, the responder will announce his or her name, title prior to entering the apartment. And that really should be happening for all staff that's visiting residents' apartments, whether it's security, it could be maintenance, or it could be housekeeping. If the resident requests that 911 be called, the response will be promptly place the call. The responder will as a resident what type of assistance is required. If the resident has fallen and is unable to get up without assistance, 911 must be called. Our staff are not trained to help in assisting residents if they are fallen. Regardless if they have any prior experience, we highly do not want that to happen. Next slide, please. Did we both miss one? There we go. Okay, we're going to head into the fire emergency guide. The community is equipped with smoke alarms throughout the building in key areas such as the kitchen, especially sprinkler systems. They're either a wet or dry system throughout the building. It just depends what portion of the building that is in. Portable fire extinguishers, they could be found in stairwells, in certain locations throughout the building, in offices, in storefronts. And those are checked every year. They're checked for pressure, and they're checked for the dates, manufacturer dates. The pull stations are going to be found in the kitchen area for the main kitchen and in one of the storefronts. They're not. I haven't found one yet within the community. And just to touch base real quick on the sprinkler systems and fire alarm systems, we have a 6 months and a quarterly check on all fire systems. So it's a compliance for SLC and for the city of Chicago. So we're up to date on that. This is very important. I can see a scenario where if a resident wanders in an area where they're not supposed to be, that's number one. That's the problem right there. But do not tamper with any or disable any fire safety equipment such as smoke alarms, smoke detectors in your apartment, or sprinkler heads. If you see any damage, please report that to staff immediately. Okay, we're gonna talk about fire in resident rooms and outside of resident rooms. So this is key to remember which scenario it is. So if this is a fire in your apartment, we ask that you stuff wet towels around the bottom of the front door to prevent smoke from entering. Move to an area in your apartment furthest away from the fire or from the door. Close all doors behind you. Stay calm and wait for the all clear announcement. The all clear announcement will be made overhead through our fire panel system. We have an ability to use a kind of like it's an overhead speaker that we can make the call from. Okay. This is if the fire's outside of your apartment. Again, if the fire is outside. Okay, I'll just go off of this side. Okay, if you're in your apartment, if if the fire is in your apartment, stay as low as possible. Close the door behind you. Proceed to the nearest stairwell. If you can call the front desk, please do so. There are what we call fire phones in the stairwells. Please pick them up and they'll be connected straight to the reception. Okay, brief question and answer. So if anybody has any questions on that, feel free to ask them. Yes.
I just had two questions. The fire extinguishers are on only certain floors on the stairwell? And if so, why are they not on all floors?
There are in the stairwells, and that's something that I'll have to take a look, but we have adequate amount of fire extinguishers for the property.
If I have to go down 2 or 3 floors to pick it up and bring it up, or a couple, then it just delays the time.
It should be at every stairwell, each floor. So if you get off on the floor, you do have 2 flights to get down to the next floor. So that's the way it's designed. Yes.
I noticed that when the overhead system is on, sometimes you can't hear it in my apartment, and I'm on the 29th floor.
Okay, so she's stating that she can't hear the overhead system from her apartment on the 29th floor.
Well, on the 30th.
Or on the 30th. Okay, so now I'm starting to get some more information that's needed to rely on our vendors and make sure we got them all taken care of. So I'm going to be limited in the amount of questions that I'm going to take. So we're going to go ahead and move forward to the next section, and Michelle's going to take off with that one.
In the case of severe weather,
Take your mask down. Thank you.
so in case of severe weather would be snow, any type of storms or severe threat. Here at the Breakers, all of our staff is trained on emergency and disaster preparedness. We are to remain in the building and pay attention to all weather bulletins. We have portable radios and extra batteries in case of emergency, and equipment and supplies are on hand and can be readily obtained. Staff are prepared to stay in the community. Staff know what their job assignments are and where we are prepared to evacuate residents if necessary. Do not panic, stay calm, follow the instructions issued. We'll be monitoring all location and local weather bulletins to relay information to the staff and to the residents. Tornado watch and emergency. We keep an eye on the watch. If there is a tornado that is located in the area, it turns into a warning and not a watch. We have a shelter in place procedure. An announcement will be made that there is a tornado watch. We will let everybody know when it is clear to go back to regular activities. Residents and staff, family members, and responsible parties will be notified. All doors and windows will be locked if necessary, and secure an interior room at the safest place for individuals that need to be moved or relocated. In the event that there is a tornado watch, the executive director would be notified. All staff will report to the post. The weather will be monitored for changes, and if necessary, we have flashlights and other essential materials that will be distributed. All outdoor equipment is to be secured. Once the tornado watch has been canceled, the incident commander has determined that the danger has passed and all clear announcement will be given. All staff and residents will be accounted for and will be able to return to regular daily activities.
When should we go for a shelter?
Yeah.
We are shelter in place for a tornado unless asked to be directed somewhere else. So we'll take shelter immediately in our apartments.
In the restaurant?
If you are on the first floor, the restroom would be a safe place to be.
Anyone away from the window?
Correct. You want to be anywhere away from any windows. And close, if you are in an area you cannot get away from the windows, then you put the blinds down or curtains or anything to keep any glass from potentially coming in. So we are sheltering in place. Announcement will be made to the community and every hour until we are able to regain back to normality. So again, we are a shelter in place building. All residents, staffs, and guests will be notified. All doors and windows will be locked. We'll be in a secure room. The safest refuge for all individuals will be moved to that location. So in the incident, command will be entailed and the executive director will be notified. All staff will report the incident to incident command post for instructions. And we're going to follow the shelter in place procedures. Once the tornado warning has been canceled, the all clear will be given. All the residents will be accounted for and everyone in staff and we can return to regular activities. Emergency procedures for after the storm. In the case where we lose power, we do have a generator that automatically will activate any emergency lights, life support systems. Any damage to the building, any injured person will be searched for and treated. In the case of an evacuation, the incident commander will determine if the evacuation is necessary. Residents and staff will assemble and assigned areas as noted on the community floor plan. When the all clear signal is given or the warning has been canceled, an announcement will be given. In the cancellation of the warning alert, after an alert has been canceled, residents can return to their apartments and all staff will resume daily activities. Auxiliary power will be provided in designated areas in case there is a normal power failure. Each resident at the breakers is responsible for letting us know if you are in the use of oxygen. If you are using an oxygen tank, we need to have a sticker placed outside of your apartment door indicating that there is use of an oxygen tank. Same thing, if there is a power outage, there is auxiliary power. We have red outlets located throughout the building. Electrical safety. A residence will be protected from injury associated with use of electrical devices. So basic electrical safety precautions is to use dry hands before you plug anything in. Do not plug anything while standing on a wet floor. Pull any cords out from the plug by yanking them. Do not unplug any device that appears to be overheating. Do not use it if it has been dropped, abused, or exposed to liquids. Inspect all outlets, extension cords, power strips, and electrical devices prior to use. Portable space heaters, halogen lamps, and extension cords should all be used with extreme caution. Please use precaution when using extension cords. Do not put overhead or under carpets. Do not use where they can be a trip or fall hazard or can overheat. Connect extension cords to only one device and ensure that cords have proper grounding. Inspect cords prior to use to make sure that they are not frayed, cut, or have any breakage. Power strips shall not be used as a substitution for adequate electrical outlets. Power strips shall not be used for medical devices or heaters. If a power strip is in use, the following precautions must be taken. That there is a ground fault. Secure strips so that it will not cause any falls or trips. Use power strips that are adequate for the number of types of devices used. And last but not least, GFI devices shall be placed in all locations near water. The use of electric blankets and electric heating pads are discouraged. If you are to be using one of these, the following precautions must be followed. Follow manufacturer's directions and instructions. Do not sleep with the blanket turned on. Do not tuck the blanket into the bedding, and do not allow the blanket or pad to be squeezed in any way. Any questions? Go ahead, sir.
I'm going a step back about the fire in case of the evacuation. What's the procedure? If there is a fire and they require evacuation.
It would depend on if the fire is in your apartment or if the fire is in another place in the building. So if the fire were to start in your apartment, you would, to leave your apartment, go to the closest stairwell, call the front desk, call 911. If the fire is somewhere else and you see smoke possibly coming in from under your doorway, you're asked to shelter in place in your apartment. To take wet, damp towels and place them against the door to keep the smoke from coming in.
Is the staff trained to help the people, because this is an handicapped building, it's not a regular building?
This is not necessarily a handicap building, but we do have handicap accessibility. But all of our staff has been highly trained in what to do in case of any type of these emergencies.
Stairway, it's a problem because we know how many people can stay there. The last question is, the office should be already automatically informed or to know right now how many people on oxygen are in the building and how many sleep apnea people are in the building.
Yes, we are aware, and that is, up to the residents to also report. So we're just saying it is a reminder that if you have not done so, to please let us know. But yes, we are aware of who is in the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't use one, but a heating blanket is meant to keep someone warm all night long. So they're gonna sleep with it on. I'm just saying we shouldn't do that.
Correct. If
So what's the
you,
point of a heating blanket?
it's to be, you can use it at other times. It's just not appropriate to have it on while you're sleeping and not coherent in case there is a fire or an issue of a malfunction with it. All right, I'm gonna give it back to Roger now.
Wanted to go back, real quick to the auxiliary power life system supports. Here at the breakers, we don't necessarily have the red plugs throughout the whole building. We have them in designated areas, and those areas are designated for, I don't want to just say for the breakers' use, but we're limited to the amount of emergency power that's hooked up to the generator. So just to keep that in mind, I wanted to bring that up and just make clear that. Also, for other evacuations, I do have, and it's not in the slide, but I want to point out different areas where we would meet in case of an emergency, because we are going to be going into a couple other slides that pertain to this. So before we even get there, I just want to point out what those areas are. That would be the first and primary staging area would be in the area in front of the breakers, the little rotunda area, where our bus usually parks and everybody else parks. So that's gonna be the first staging area. Does everybody know where that is? Okay. The second staging area is right here outside in the park. The gate that leads into Lincoln Park is our secondary staging area. Does everybody know where that is? Okay, good. Okay. Terrorism, bomb threat. Unfortunately, we have to talk about these scenarios. The community is prepared to respond to a bomb or terrorist threat. And, you know, most of these slides, staff is trained through a system called Relias. It's a computer-generated checklist for all staff that we all have to go through multiple times a year. So it's important for staff, management and staff to go through these trainings. That way, if somebody does have a question, we're in the hallway, especially after we're speaking of it, to have the correct response. And if the staff doesn't have a correct response, I'd rather them not answer it and, you know, write it down and bring it to our attention, okay? The community is prepared to respond to a bomb or terrorism threat. Bomb threat implementation. The community treats all bomb threats very serious, very serious. All staff receives training on bomb threat procedures. Community staff will report any bomb threat to local law enforcement. That also, if you see something that's not in its right place, a package that's been sitting there for a while, whatever it may be, please, you know, let front desk know, you know, obviously call police, but also please include staff with that. Terrorism implementation. The policy states activate the incident command system, all staff to report to the incident command, notify the executive director, notify law enforcement, conduct a search of all areas and departments. And before we move on, I personally would call our ED first. That's just me. But for all purposes, this is a SLC implementation. But I would call the executive director first. Then I would notify law enforcement. But this is just a slide representing what SLC has in place. No staff or resident is to touch or remove a suspicious package. All actions will be coordinated with law enforcement. So if you do see a suspicious package, don't try to figure it out. Just point it out, and we'll let the professionals take care of it, law enforcement. Any questions on that? No questions? Okay, we'll move on. Armed intruder, active shooter. Yes. Again, we also go through training through our SLC. It's called the intranet, and it's Relias-based training. That's what we train on. Staff will respond quickly to threats of violence, including threats by an armed intruder. Implementation. Staff will respond to armed intruder and active shooter in the same way. because an armed intruder can transform into active shooter situation very rapidly. Implementation. All staff is trained regarding active shooter, armed intruder policy and response. Early and immediate recognition of an active shooter, armed intruder event is imperative to increase servability. So what does that mean for us, staff, as residents? If you see somebody that's very agitated in the hallways, what do? We typically try to calm them down. If that doesn't work, what do we do next? No suggestions from anybody? That's coming up soon, so yeah. No, just remain calm. If the situation escalates, back up and get a member of staff, and we could start implementing some of these responses that we have here. The following announcement will be given in the event of an armed intruder. Armed intruder in the community. Proceed the community lockdown procedures. Designated staff to report to the incident command post immediately. Once that activates, team members from management will more than likely decide what scenario is going to play out next and implement those thoughts. Initiate the resident safety procedure or personal safety procedure depending on the location and actions of the active shooter or intruder. Implement the incident command system. Notify the executive director. By that time, we would have already notified the executive director and law enforcement. Okay, this one is pertaining to what we just talked about, what to do next. You have an agitated staff member, or visitor, whoever it may be. If it turns into an active shooter, armed intruder situation, number one, get out. What that means, leave the area as quick as possible, hide out, keep out, don't return to the area that was in question. And if all fails, take out. That's at the very, very last resort. Take the person out. Does everybody understand that? How I just explained it? Right, so we get out the area in question where the agitated person is. We hide out, depending how far you can get and hide out in a secure location. Keep out, do not return. Don't leave your good hiding space. And if all else fails, we have to eliminate the intruder, armed intruder, or person causing harm. Does everybody understand that? I want to be very clear on all four steps.
How do you do it? How do you take someone out?
Any way possible. Carry a pen with you. This is what we have to implement, and I think it's a good way to address the situation. When you're hiding out or escaping, or you're getting out, or even if you're trying to eliminate the threat, call 911. Do as quick as possible, especially if you don't see staff members. Call 911. If you don't have a phone, knock on somebody's door. Tell them to call 911. Stay calm. When law enforcement arrives, follow the officer's instructions. Empty your hands. Keep hands and fingers spread. Do not scream or yell. Do not run at officers or grab them. Provide any information requested by law enforcement. When law enforcement deems the situation to be safe and all clear will be given to the community. If you're hiding, barricade in place until you hear the all clear. Following the incident account for all residents and staff. And that's we're wrapping up. So your safety and security is important to us. If you have any questions about this presentation, please contact these lovely people up here. Okay, so we ran this pretty quick. Again, I don't want to take too much time away from everybody, but we'll be prepared to answer a couple questions here. And if you need to meet me or Michelle afterwards, we'll be glad to do so, yes.
Is there any chance to improve the speaker system? Because when the fire trucks came, I don't know, weeks ago, and the elevators went down and then there was an all clear, I heard a mumbling out there, but in my apartment, and I don't have any kind of music on or anything. So it's hard to hear when you're in an apartment.
So she's asking again about our overhead paging system. That is part of our fire panel that gets looked at every 6 months. So the next time it's being inspected, I'll be sure to mention that we have several residents on different floors that can't hear our ancillary overhead system. So that is very important because that's one way we're going to be able to communicate. If it's severe weather coming up, if it's an armed intruder, if there's a fire, what to do if you're going to stay in place.
If there's
So-
an intruder, you don't want to open the door so you can listen better.
That's correct. So I'll be sure to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Other people. What did he say? What did he say? Yeah.
I'm going to repeat the question. Let me know if I got it right because I could barely hear you back there. Again, it's for the overhead paging system. By the time the resident heard the alarm going off, she got to the door and she wasn't able to decipher or hear what the announcement was. So that's something that we can work on from the incident command when something happens.
In the apartment.
We have adequate staff on the weekends to take care of those situations. That's why we have the front desk fully staffed. That is something I can follow up on. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, do you recommend a small apartment size fire extinguisher in our?
I'm afraid it is.
Providing you know how to use them.
Providing you know how to use one is key because there's several different type of fire extinguishers. You have class A, B, and C. You have class E. You have to know what you're going to be using for the specific fire. I do not recommend having a fire extinguisher if you don't know what class of fire extinguisher you're going to use. Be anticipating, well, hopefully not even anticipating you're going to have to use it, because if you're using it, we have different issues. Yes. Go ahead.
I wondered if there are any plans to put in more red power sources, and if the people that would need them can get trained, and also their caregivers can get trained about where those red outlets are.
You know, that's something to look into. I can't promise anything at this point. We're not looking to install new red electrical outlets connected to our generator. There goes a lot in place with that. The rating of our generator, what equipment are you going to be hooking it up to? So at this point, no. But it's always something that, you know, when a resident asks me, Roger, if we're going to be doing this, I always take that into consideration. But more than likely, at that specific time, we're not going to be implementing exactly just like the red power.
Are there any of them above the 3rd floor on the residential floor?
I cannot honestly answer that. I've been looking for them throughout the building. I've found a couple of them, but no.
Maybe the people that live here who need that should be grouped where they can get to them more easily.
I can't recommend that. That's something that's, that's something that I really don't consider, just from the maintenance aspect of it. Just being honest.
I never
I believe she said that she's never heard an announcement.
It's on my floor.
Okay, so the 29th, correct? 30th and 29th, and I have somebody on 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like we have to take a real close look at our announcement system. Okay. One person at a time so I can hear. Yes, go ahead.
I'm very concerned about when a message is given to us over the big loudspeakers. Because I live in 10K and you cannot hear that inside my apartment.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a building
Yeah.
issue. I'm not gonna write down the floors, but now that I got more people telling me it looks like it's leaning towards more of an issue than we originally thought. Yeah, go ahead.
If you look at this warning system, is it possible to take the overhead speakers and put a small one in each apartment so we can all actually hear what's being said? Or-
That'd be great.
No, I don't, at this point, no. Again, I take everything in consideration, but at this point, I don't think we're gonna be, going down that route. The first thing would be to make sure that what we do have in place works and it works well for everybody. After that, then, we can have some type of discussion, but as of now, no. Go ahead.
You raised the issue about if we have internal flooding in apartments. I had that happen twice, where water started flowing down in the middle of the night all over my apartment.
Yeah, that's more of a maintenance aspect. I wouldn't really consider that a emergency preparedness. Any other questions? Any questions for me or Michelle? Anything you guys want me to go over again? You got 15 minutes.
Roger,
Yes.
when the backup system comes in, what lights up on a residential floor?
Emergency lighting, there's certain lights that, so it's not just the exit signs, it's some overhead lights stay on, one elevator, and I'm trying to figure out the rest. So right now we have the generator that's fully functional, but we're trying to figure out what's exactly on it. And we check that generator once a year, but I'm trying to implement at least once a month that it's run, or that's being ran. Back here.
Years ago, we were issued a list of things that we should have on hand in case of an emergency, such as fresh water and so on. I think it might be a good idea to issue a list now, because we have a lot of new residents that never received that.
I think that's a very good idea. We'll start working on that and try to distribute it as quickly as possible. Let me ask this question. Does everybody have that laminated paper on the back of your door in your apartment? Okay.
I used to, I don't have.
I don't remember.
Okay, if you don't have them, see Christina. Okay. Oh, okay. If you're missing it, if you don't have that, it does with fire procedures also. So that's key. Now it's up to you. Once you get it, if you want to leave it behind your door, I highly recommend it. That's what it's there for.
How do we get it?
Please see Christina.
We don't have fireworks.
Go ahead.
I thought Michelle said that the housekeeping people would check those doors at some point in the near future, because that'd be an efficient way if the housekeeper could let you know, Christina, which units don't have it, because we're not 100% here.
Right, we're just asking those that are here, if you don't have it, we can have it installed for you. I have the copies laminated and the sticky to stick it behind everyone's apartment door. So if you don't have one, let me know and I can make sure that one is installed for you.
My dear, when the lights out, I can see like all the yeah, it's a
So Nancy's saying that when there's a fire or when the lights are out, she can see all the way around her door. And she wanted to know, what does she do? So you're still gonna just install the moist, wet towels below at the bottom of the door? At least until someone can get there to, put out the fire and help evacuate you.
Okay, I do have a few.
All right, this is fun, guys. I like talking about this stuff. This is what I do. Go ahead.
This question is for Christina, and it's not on this topic, but it does affect everyone. When are you going to start emptying or checking the lockers outside the apartments?
So I'll answer that just because we're here. So the question is about the lockers. So what's gonna happen now is anybody who does not, if you did not tag your locker, we're gonna go down the list and gonna address anyone who hasn't tagged their locker independently. We're not emptying anyone's locker that's tagged. So if your locker's tagged, you're all good. If your locker is not tagged, we have a list of whose locker belongs to who. We'll call you and let you know, your locker's not tagged, you still want the items inside, and we'll take it from there. But all new tags are gonna be put on every locker.
Okay, everyone, if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Okay, and
Thank you.
be patient with the elevator, and just Christina has something else to announce, so I'll hand it over to her, but thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Roger and Michelle. So today's presentation dealt with what do you do and how do you stay prepared. On April 26th, we have another presentation on what you do when fire or EMS have to show up at your apartment. How do you prepare for that situation where you may have to be taken from the community or you may be evacuated because of a fire or an emergency medical situation. So April 26th is the second half of this presentation. We do have someone coming in from outside the community, but I thank you all for coming. I think this was very valuable. I hope that you all gleaned some information. There will be handouts given at the second half of the two-part series. And I will include some things that you need to keep on hand in the event of a situation. Just know that the breakers does have a water supply. We do have emergency provisions in the event of a disaster. So we do have those, but it is good to have a little bit of it for yourself on hand in any situation. So without further ado, there's some snacks in the back. Feel free to grab something to eat, and I thank you very much for all your participation.
All right, ladies.
Don't wanna do it.
Oh, very good.